Happy New Year, it's me, Toby. Let's see, do you guys have any New Year's resolutions? For me, I have a couple. I'm going to learn how to use Blender, the 3D modeling program. I also want to keep uploading onto my YouTube channel, hopefully every week for the whole year. I think that's a pretty good goal. And of course, I also want to get in better shape. Let's see. If you want, you can go ahead and comment your New Year's resolution into the comments below. But we're not here to talk about New Year's. We're here to study for the SAT, specifically the hardest questions on the SAT. Today we're looking at the writing section, section 2, the grammar part. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So here I have test 7, practice test 7, section 2, questions 34 to 44. So this is passage 4 of 4, the hardest questions in the grammar section. So for the fourth passage, I definitely recommend reading through the whole passage just because the questions are so much harder. The questions kind of require you to have a full understanding of the passage to answer them. So let's go ahead and start right at the beginning. Was a hoax a hoax? For an hour on the evening of October 30th, 1938, Orson Welles and the other performers from the Mercury Theater flooded the airwaves with alarming news bulletins about a Martian invasion supposedly occurring in Grover's Mill, New Jersey. They were performing a radio play adapted from The War of the Worlds, a science fiction novel by H.G. Wells. The next day, a front-page headline in the New York Times declared radio listeners in panic, taking war drama as fact. Okay, let's take a look at number 34. So you can tell from the answer choices, we're being tested on comma usage. We definitely need this comma here after declared because we open up with a quotation, right? So we can eliminate B and D because they don't have this comma here. We need this comma to open up the quotation. So the difference between no change and C is this comma here after a headline. The next day, a front page headline in the New York Times declared. So here the correct answer is A. In the SAT in general, I think if you're going to put in a comma, you better have a good reason. And here, there isn't a very good reason for this one. This is an unnecessary comma. 35, the writer wants to add a supporting detail to indicate that the story was widely reported. Which choice best accomplishes this goal? Okay. The Times article claimed that people had fled their homes and the police stations had been swamped with calls. Okay. Just because the police station had been swamped with calls doesn't necessarily mean that the story was widely reported. I think we can do a bit better than that. Let's see. B, other newspapers also ran stories claiming that the broadcast had incited mass hysteria. I like this one. Yeah, so if other newspapers also run stories, that means it is indeed widely reported, right? Choice C, in 2013, many newspapers and magazines featured articles about the 75th anniversary of the broadcast. No, that's kind of just like a retrospective. Doesn't necessarily indicate that it was widely reported. D, the Times was then and now one of the United States' most popular news sources. No, that again, it has nothing to do with being widely reported. 36. This version of events persisted, and the legend became that Wells' broadcast had as many as 12 million people who feared that Martians had invaded the Earth. That fearing to fear. So it's definitely not that fearing. You cannot refer to people as that. Let's zoom back in. We can eliminate B. Let's see. To fear. No, that one's. You can't say people to fear. Has had as many as 12 million people to fear. So it's down to who feared and fearing. Okay, so this one is a little nuanced, but I think the difference between A and C is that if you say the broadcast had people who feared, that sounds like maybe the people were in fear already. So I think about it this way. So if you say, I had 2 dogs that were scared. Or let's see. I had 2 dogs that were hungry. So the dogs were hungry, not necessarily because of you, right? I think the emphasis here is the broadcast made them fear the Martians. Not the best explanation, maybe. Yeah, we'll definitely go read the explanation for this one when we check our answers. But I am pretty sure the answer here is fearing and not who feared. Yeah, do you get what I'm saying, right? Yeah, so if you say who feared, it sounds like the people were already scared and they just like collected them. Whereas if you have fearing, it's clear that the broadcast made the people afraid of the Martians. Okay. 37. Recently, however, scholars have questioned the accuracy of this legend, suggesting the degree of public hysteria had been grossly exaggerated. The authors of an article published in October 2013 go so far to assign blame for the distortion to the newspaper industry. So is it go so far to, go as far to, go as far and, go so far as. So I think the way I've used this, or I've heard this phrase used the most is as far as, right? So, but here, as far as is not an option. My contact fell out. Give me a second. Let me put my contact back. So what am I saying? As far as, so far as, so let's see. So I definitely feel like as far to, that doesn't sound right. And then so far to also doesn't sound right. And then definitely C doesn't sound right. Yeah, sometimes they do this, right? They don't give you the obvious choice, which would be as far as. So far as is less familiar to me, but I still think it's okay to say. So let's go with D. 38. At this time, Jefferson Pooley and Michael Sakalau, both professors of communication studies, argue that the newspaper industry sought to discredit the newly emerging technology of radio. So this one, it's a phrase that kind of connects this new paragraph to the previous paragraph. Or no, is this a new paragraph? It's not clear. Anyway, yeah, so we want to kind of connect this portion with this next portion. So we're talking about an article that was published in October 2013 at this time. On the other hand, in the article, yeah, so I think it's in the article. So we bring up an article, and hopefully now we're talking about the authors of that article. At this time, what does that mean at this time? Pretty vague, it doesn't make sense. On one hand, yeah, then on one hand, and then if you say on one hand, you need like on the other hand, right? So there is no on the other hand in this paragraph. So B doesn't make sense. Next. No, we're still on the same article. Okay, 39. Both professors of communication studies argue that the newspaper industry sought to discredit the newly emerging technology of radio, which was cutting into newspapers' profits. The newspaper industry tried to do this by portraying the new medium as irresponsible. Which choice most effectively combines the sentences at the underlined portion? So for this type of question, which choice most effectively combines the sentences at the underlined portion, I like to start with the shortest one and kind of just double check that it works. Which was cutting into newspapers' profits by portraying the new medium as irresponsible. I think that's fine. Profits, which is what the newspaper industry tried to do when it portrayed, okay, that's way too wordy. B, profits by which the newspaper industry portrayed, still kind of too wordy. Profits and tried to do this by portraying. Very awkward. Yeah, I would say A, B, and C are all very wordy and awkward. I think D is definitely the best choice here. 40, which choice best establishes the main idea of the paragraph? Okay, so now we need to know what the paragraph is about. For instance, CE Hooper ratings indicate that a mere 2% of households had tuned into the broadcast. Pooley and Scalau also call into question the validity of an oft-cited report that was based on a survey conducted 6 weeks after the broadcast. Just because some people found the broadcast unsettling, the authors contend, doesn't mean they believed it and reacted with real terror. According to this report, 1 million people indicated that they had been frightened by the broadcast. Ratings, however, reveal that far fewer than 1 million people had been listening to the broadcast. Furthermore, Pooley and Scalau note that this survey conflated being frightened, disturbed, or excited by the program with being panicked. Okay. Proof of an ulterior motive is scarce, consequently weakening Pooley and Scalau's argument. No, I don't think we're suddenly like switching sides here. Suddenly we were supporting Pooley and Scalau before, and now we're talking about how their argument is weak. I don't think so. B, but evidence does suggest that reports of panic have been overblown. I like this one a lot. Yeah, so this is what the last sentence was talking about, right? How not necessarily, people weren't necessarily panicked. Yeah, so the survey conflated being frightened, disturbed, or excited by the program with being panicked. C, yet Pooley and Scalau maintain that the newspaper industry intentionally distorted the story. No. D, making it difficult to determine what really happened. No. Yeah. Let's go with B. 41. Ratings, however, reveal that far fewer than 1 million people. So we can eliminate C and D right away. So this one comes down to then versus than. THEN is like time, like I went to the store, then had dinner. Whereas THAN is when you're comparing things, like I prefer, I like TikTok more than Facebook. Yeah, right? Okay. So it's down to A and B. Is it far fewer than or many less than? So it's fewer. Yeah, so fewer is when you can like count things 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have like fewer items. You have less water. So like things that aren't in like specific units. Like I have less water, but you have fewer bottles of water. Yeah, since you can count bottles of water. So you would say like I have fewer t-shirts than Sarah, but you would say I have less clothes than Sarah, or like less cloth. Okay. 42. To make this paragraph most logical, sentence 4 should be placed where? Oh, geez. Okay, so this paragraph here, this one is extra frustrating because the paragraph is cut into 2 pages. Okay, sentence 4 is here. Just because some people found the broadcast unsettling, the authors contend, doesn't mean they believed it and reacted with real terror. Okay, so for these types of problems, I like to start with the sentences surrounding that sentence. So let's look at 3 and 5. Pooley and Scalau also call into question the validity of an oft-cited report that was based on a survey conducted 6 weeks after the broadcast. According to this report, 1 million people indicated that they had been frightened by the broadcast. Yeah, so do you see how sentence 5 refers to this broadcast right at the end of the sentence? So I would say 3 and 5 go together very well because you talk about the broadcast and then you immediately say, according to this report. Sorry, I'm talking the report, not the broadcast. Whereas 4 doesn't talk about the report. So I think that's why you kind of, I would say 4 does not belong here, because sentence 3 and sentence 5 connect together so well. Let's see, so where else can we put it? So let's go ahead and eliminate where it is now. After sentence 2, let's take a look at sentence 2. For instance, C.E. Hooper rating indicate that a mere 2% of households had tuned into the broadcast. Yeah, 4 has nothing to do with sentence 2. I mean, maybe nothing is too far, but I would say like, yeah, sentence 4 definitely doesn't directly connect to sentence 2. Let's try. So I think we can eliminate that one. So it's either going to be after sentence 5 or after sentence 7. Um, According to this report, 1 million people indicated that they had been frightened by the broadcast. Ratings, however, revealed that far fewer than a million. Okay, so again, so 6 and 5 go together really, really well. So there's 1 million here, but then the ratings reveal that far fewer than a million people had been watching it or listening to it. So it must be D, right? Because we've eliminated all the other choices. Sentence 7 reads, furthermore, Puli and Scalau note that the survey conflated being frightened, disturbed, or excited by the program with being panicked. Just because some people found the broadcast unsettling, the authors contend, doesn't mean they believed and reacted with real terror. Yes. Okay, so sentence 4 elaborates on sentence 7. Yeah, I think that works nicely. Yeah, those are pretty tough, huh? Puli and Scalau describe a more likely scenario. Most people who heard the broadcast understood they were listening to a piece of fiction, but some, being influenced by the sensationalized news coverage afterwards, later remembered being more afraid than they had been. Okay. Okay, so I think the key to this one, answering number 43, is this comma here. This comma here doesn't really make sense. Unless you choose choice C here. So if you put a comma after some and get rid of the word being, this portion of the sentence becomes like a modifier or like a additional piece of information. So the sentence could read, but some later remembered being more afraid than they had been. And that's perfectly fine, right? That makes sense. And we're sectioning off the extra information with a comma at the beginning and the end. I feel like otherwise the other choices cause problems because, yeah, like I said, this comma here doesn't make sense without choice C. Let's see, some, but some, they were, yeah, so this one causes a run-on sentence. That's why B doesn't work. But some influenced by the sensationalized news coverage afterward. Yeah, so yeah, like I said, so choice D doesn't work because of this comma here, and the same reason A doesn't work either. 44. Which choice most effectively signals the comparison the writer is making between the two groups mentioned? The researchers also suggest that, not unlike people who got caught up in the excitement of the story when reading about it in the newspaper, the American public may have been willing to embrace the legend because of its appeal to the imagination. Oh, geez. So the choices are not unlike, not like, different from. Okay, so this sentence is, I would say, pretty poorly written, actually. What are they trying to say? It's not immediately clear. But one great test-taking strategy here would be to immediately eliminate B and C, because these two mean the same thing. So if B is the correct answer, why wouldn't C be the correct answer? So I'm going to go ahead and eliminate both. Different from is also very similar to unlike and not like. I'm just going to go ahead with A. So hopefully now you can kind of better see that what the sentence is trying to say is that just like the people who got caught up in the excitement of the story back in 1938, the American public later was willing to embrace the legend because it's such a fun story. Let's see. Let's go ahead and check our answers here. Let's see. Yeah, I have the explanations here. Boop, 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 boop. Starting from question 34, and then, yeah, we definitely wanted to read the description for 36. Okay. "34 is A, 35 is B, 36 is C. The participle fearing clearly describes the people who thought that Martians had invaded Earth and places the focuses on fear. A is incorrect because it changes the meaning of the sentence. A broadcast can't have people. Choice A would also require a comma before who feared to make it grammatically correct." So you can have people fearing. But if you say had people who feared, that implies that you own them. Okay, it's like a pretty delicate, nuanced reason. Let's see, and then we have D for 37. Yes, D. So we have C, D, B, A. C, D, B, A. Excellent. And then we have D, C, A. D, C, A. D, C, A. Wonderful. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, all right. Yeah, so definitely, hopefully you're noticing that these questions are a lot harder than what we covered last week, or not last week, but in the previous series. Yeah, these are pretty tough, and it's definitely going to take quite a bit of practice, I think, for most people to get all the questions right in this portion. Yeah, so yeah, they throw you a lot of curveballs, like 37, right? So I'm really looking for as far as, but they don't give me that choice. So now I have to decide which one of these four that I'm less familiar with is more idiomatic than the other ones. Pretty tough. Pretty tough. And then yeah, 36 is also very, very... So I think they're saying who feared makes it sound like the broadcast owns those people, whereas fearing makes it clear that the broadcast caused people to fear that Martians had invaded Earth. Not easy at all. All right. Yeah, hopefully you guys are getting some time to practice. Yeah, I know things are pretty crazy. Hopefully 2021 turns out a bit better than 2020. I don't know. I've been having... I thought 2020 was pretty good. Maybe that's just because I enjoy being inside and playing video games. Anyway, I'm so glad that you guys could be here studying the SAT with me again. I hope to see you again next week. See ya.